Hello! So, it's finally here, Skyrim Special Edition. I've been looking forward to this since it was announced earlier in the year, and I'm very excited to finally get my hands on it. Skyrim is a game that is very dear to my heart. It's a game I've spent hundreds of hours playing, sometimes to the detriment of my social life and sanity. It's the game that made me want to start a YouTube channel in the first place, basically. Now, I've played the game for several hours today, so I wanted to make a video sharing my first impressions, going over what's new, and speculating a little over what we might be able to expect in terms of modding the game. Now, I think that whether or not you enjoy the special edition and feel it's worth the money will depend largely on two things. A, your expectations, and B, your previous experience with the game, if any. Now, I first played the game on the Xbox 360 before switching to the PC, and the last time I played Skyrim was probably a little over a year ago. It was very heavily modded on a reasonably high-end PC, and I'll admit that this did influence my initial reaction when I started up the special edition. So, what is special about the special edition? What is new? Well, the most obvious upgrades are the graphical ones. The special edition offers improved textures, volumetric lighting, aka God rays, as well as dynamic depth of field. On starting up the game and playing through the intro sequence, I was initially underwhelmed. The weather was dull, so it didn't show off the new lighting effects, and to be honest, I wasn't hugely impressed by the character models and textures, or a lot of the textures around Helgen. They are certainly improved, but not drastically in my opinion. Overall, I've found the new textures hit and miss, to be honest. Playing through that first mini-dungeon, getting through Helgen, I noticed that the most obviously improved textures were often on small, inconspicuous objects, and some of the large textures, the ground and rock textures in particular, leave a lot to be desired. A lot of the textures on buildings and some large furniture objects, for example, as well, aren't so great. Once I got out of Helgen, however, I began to be impressed. The special edition vastly increases the volume of grass and plant cover, and generally the quality of these is terrific. The water is also much improved, and this, combined with the new lighting effects, really makes for some gorgeous scenery. You really need to get out into the wilderness to appreciate what a step up the special edition is graphically. The lighting in the game is massively improved. The original game had quite a desaturated look that a lot of people disliked, myself included, and the special edition takes care of that nicely. One criticism I do have is that the nighttime exteriors still have that washed out blue look rather than being realistically dark. The volumetric lighting, as I mentioned, looks great and really makes for some atmospheric scenes. Now, God rays are notorious performance hogs, but I didn't really notice much of a hit, which was a pleasant surprise because the God rays in Fallout 4 were a bit of a frame rate killer. I also really like the new dynamic depth of field. Now, some people dislike noticeable depth of field in games, but I personally love the cinematic effect it creates. Now, some of the transitions are a bit jarring. Basically, it will focus on whatever is bang in the middle of your screen. So sometimes it can be a bit obvious, but for the most part, I think the transitions are reasonably subtle. You can adjust the strength of this effect in the settings, so you can tailor it to your preference. Another huge improvement is the shadows. Now, as you may know, the shadows in the original Skyrim were horrendous, blocky eyesores that seemingly no modder was able to fix, and the special edition thankfully makes them a thing of the past. There have also been big changes under the hood. The game has been upgraded from a 32-bit engine to a 64-bit engine. Without getting technical, because I'm by no means particularly savvy when it comes to that stuff. But in a nutshell, it means the game is no longer limited when it comes to how much RAM it can utilize, meaning there is much more scope to heavily mod the game without running into the stability issues that often plagued the original. This will likely be the biggest draw for many PC users, myself included. Now, yes, as it currently stands, you can get a better looking game on a heavily modded version of the original Skyrim, but you'll also likely be dealing with stability issues and a noticeable performance hit by that point. The Special Edition is essentially a great starting point for modding, and it has massive potential if the modding community really jumps on board to support it. Speaking of mods, this is the big selling point for console players, and there are already some great mods available. It's really awesome to see mod authors making such a big effort to get mods out for console players and PC players so early. There will of course be limitations on modding for consoles, especially so for the PS4, which has had its modding ability, well, let's face it, gimped quite severely by not allowing external assets and having a 1GB limit as opposed to the 5GB on the Xbox One. The Skyrim modding community are an ingenious bunch, so I'm hopeful they'll be able to come up with some good stuff for PS4 owners, but I do think a lot of PS4 players are going to be disappointed if they've set their expectations too high when it comes to mods. As for the Xbox, the 5GB allowance is enough to mod the game quite a bit, but some of the larger quest mods, for example, might not be feasible. So, how about what hasn't changed? Well, there have been no changes to gameplay mechanics that I'm aware of, and there is no new content in terms of locations or quest lines, although the game does come with all the DLC. And yes, the residents of Riverwood will still kill the shit out of you if you dare lay a finger on that chicken. So, for those of you who are still deciding on whether or not to get the game, you probably want to know, is it worth the money? And my frustratingly vague answer is, that depends. If you're a PC player who has the original game and the DLC, the Special Edition is free, so in that case, definitely worth it. Although I can understand many people will want to wait until there are more mods available and we have things like the script extender. If you're a console player, you're probably looking at about $60 for the game, although I did see it going for around £35 on some UK-based online retailers, so shop around. If you've never played the game before, you are in for a huge treat. There's a reason the game is so well loved. My advice to you would be, don't even watch any more videos, just jump in, ignore any guides, don't look at any of that stuff, just jump in blind and get absorbed in the world. It'll be well worth it. If you owned the game on console before, the Special Edition is a vast technical improvement. All those people moaning that it doesn't even look any different, that's bullshit. I have an Xbox 360 and a copy of the game, and out of curiosity I dusted it off and plugged it in and had a look, and I'd forgotten how bad it looked, for want of a better way of phrasing it. So yeah, it is a huge improvement. If modding is your main reason for wanting the game, that's great, but it's worth understanding the limitations of modding on consoles to avoid disappointment. Nevertheless, you're bound to have a lot of fun once you go down that modding rabbit hole. Take it from me. Well, I'm going to wrap the video up there, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful and or informative. I'll be doing lots of Skyrim videos over the coming weeks and likely months, including plenty of guides and tutorials, so if that kind of thing interests you, then do check back often and think about subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.